All right, the massive fight between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz goes down in a couple of days. I'm going to break it all down. I'm going to give you a prediction. But first of all, we're going to talk about the latest happenings in that world because Nate Diaz is being absolutely hilarious. I'm absolutely loving how he is messing with Jake Paul. Jake is getting very, very frustrated because he's saying that Nate isn't promoting the fight. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. He's not carrying that gangster attitude, and he's taking all of my insults and rolling over like a bitch.
He talked a lot more to me before we signed up to fight. So he's kind of being a bitch in that sense. And I expected more out of him, and I expected him to carry that gangster attitude and to, not take my insults and all this stuff. But pretty much he's rolled over like a bitch.
No, he's not. He's not lowering himself to arguing and belittling himself against a Disney boy. Yeah, sure enough, they are going to fight, but he's not going to sit there, and get into this verbal sparring match. That's what Jake Paul wants. Already, Nate Diaz is winning because he's not giving Jake what he wants. And then the other day, they did this sit down with Ariel Helwani, a little face-to-face, and I think the idea was for them to both talk shit, go back and forth, get very insulting, hype the fight like crazy. Nate Diaz sits there, starts looking around. He's like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? He says, I'll be right back. Gets up, walks off stage, leaves the building, gets in the car and disappears, okay? Which I thought, if there's one way to mess with your opponent, that's it. Nate Diaz does not give a single shit. But he might do come fight night. The reality is Jake Paul, even though he's cherry-picking opponents, okay, and he is, Ben Askren was a wrestler, okay? Couldn't box to save his life. Fair play showed knockout power. Tyron Woodley, same thing. Knockout power on display when he fought the basketball player, Nate Robinson. Knockout power on display. Went up against Anderson Silva, granted almost 50 years old. Dropped him, beat him, fair and square. Well done. So now he's picked on Nate Diaz, a guy that fought most of his career at 155 pounds in the UFC. He's 38 years old with a record of 22-13. Jake Paul is 26. He's in his prime. He's the bigger guy, weighs about 205, maybe even 210 pounds. He's far younger. He's in his prime and he's bigger, taller, longer. And he's got a record of 6-1 in boxing with 4 KOs. So what Jake Paul has done here, right, is run the risk. He's ran a calculated risk because he thinks, oh, hold on, Nate Diaz is a big name. Okay, we're going to sell loads of pay-per-views. He's going to talk loads of shit, which he hasn't done. And then I'm going to beat him. But it's not guaranteed. Recently, I partnered with a company called Legacy Precious Metals. Now, I know a lot of people are going through tough times right now, but if you are fortunate enough to where you have a few dollars left over every month to think about investing, then maybe investing in gold and silver through Legacy Precious Metals might be for you. Now, the stock market, if you follow that stuff, it's all over the place. In fact, it's plummeting right now. But precious metals, they've always held their value or even increased. So, of course, that's something that we're all interested in. Does it have to be a lot of money? It can just be a little bit because it all adds up over time. Now, if you click the link, there is a guide there. It'll tell you all about investing in gold and silver, or you can give them a call and they will answer all of your questions at 866-933-0317. Listen, Nate Diaz is a fighter. There is no quit in that man. He hasn't got the greatest, sharpest, snappiest boxing, but he can hurt people. Look at the fight with Conor McGregor. Before he finished him with a rear naked choke, it was a straight shot that hurt him. When he fought Leon Edwards in the 5th round, after taking quite a beating, he rocked him and landed the best shot in the 5th round against Leon Edwards, who's now a dominant welterweight champion. So for all the wins and the losses that Nate Diaz has had, the man is a fighter and he never, ever gives up on himself. And of course, he's known for the cardio. And that, I think, is going to be the key here, okay? Because Jake Paul's going to come out. He's going to be cocky. He's going to be hungry to get another knockout because he believes in his knockout power. And that's what's going to happen. He's going to swing at Nate Diaz. And if he can't take him out of there, the longer this fight goes on, the more it's going to sway into the favor of Nate Diaz. Nate does triathlons. He's done them for years. Never, ever gets tired. Always been known for his cardio. And he has that body type as well. Not overly muscled, which lends itself to endurance, to stamina, to going the distance. Now, granted, there's no kicks, there's no knees, elbows, there's no clinching, and there's certainly no jiu-jitsu on the ground. But a lot of the time, Nate Diaz is happy to stand and trade, okay, and work with the hands. But how will it go? I don't know. What I do know is that neither man Neither man's got a lot to gain here. Let's be honest. If Jake Paul wins, okay, fair enough. It's a solid win over Nate Diaz. But it's a guy that's never boxed. It's a guy that's 38 years old, okay? Does that regain the credibility that he lost from losing to Tommy Fury? I'm not sure if it does. And if he loses to Nate Diaz, you can pretty much kiss this boxing career goodbye. In fact, even his manager came out and co-promoter came out and said that if Jake loses this fight, there's a good chance that he retires. Because listen, if he loses to Tommy Fury, a man that's not a bad boxer, but he's just an amateur, he's just starting his career, and then he loses to Nate Diaz, right? All this talk, for the love of God, about beating Canelo.
Good luck with that.
And all these pound for pound great fighters that we have in boxing, all that talk is going to disappear. And who knows, maybe Jake Paul disappears off the face of the earth as well. So here's how I think it goes down. I think Jake Paul's going to come out in the first round. He's going to be looking for that knockout, as I said, and he's going to be dangerous. Listen, we saw the knockout power. You can't deny that. Tyron Woodley did not take a dive. Ben Askren did not take a dive. There's all these theories out there. Listen, that's BS. Now, I'll be honest, he really surprised me when he went out there and beat Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, even though he is almost 50, had boxed, knocked out Tito Ortiz, beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a decent boxer as well. You know, so we can't just say that he was old. He is old. He was old. He's not a boxer, but he had boxed, and he was knocking people out and he was doing well. So I'll give Jake credit for that win. I will. Not all the credit, not the credit I get for beating Anderson Silva in his prime, but still, he gets some credit for that. You can't just be a straight up hater. But against Diaz, he's going to come out, he's going to believe in his power, and he's going to try and knock him out. He is the bigger guy. He does have more muscle, and that will come at a price. The longer this fight goes, the more the balance tips into the favor of Nate Diaz. The problem with Nate Diaz, he has a lot of cuts. Remember when he fought Jorge Masvidal for the BMF belt at Madison Square Garden? The fight was stopped because of cuts. That's because he's had a long storied MMA career. And once you develop all that scar tissue all over your face, well, it's easy to open up. I don't think we're going to see Jake Paul knock Nate Diaz out unconscious. You never know, but I don't think we're going to see that. What we might see if Jake Paul's connecting is that he starts to open up the cuts. And maybe Jake could win via doctor stoppage. But again, I don't think we'll see that. I think Jake, coming off his first loss, is now going to feel human. When you go out there and you're undefeated and you're beating people time after time after time, like he was doing, and you're knocking people out like he was doing, and then he fights Anderson Silva and he wins by decision, he starts to believe your own hype. Everyone's kissing his ass, his managers, his trainers, all the fans online, all his YouTube community. And you start to believe it. But then you lose to Tommy Fury and you lose fair and square, and against a guy that, all respect to Tommy Fury, isn't world class right now. You never know, he might go on to become world class. So what I'm saying is that Jake Paul's going to come into this one, and I don't think he's going to be quite as confident. And as I said, with all the antics at the press conference, walking out the building and all the rest of it, and the refusal to engage, I think Jake is already starting to get a little frustrated, and that may affect him in his performance. Now, Nate Diaz, also, it's kind of a risky situation. He still wants to come back to the UFC. He said after this fight, he's going to beat Jake Paul. He's going to come back to the UFC.
He'd probably either be back in the UFC or do something like this in the MMA style.
Probably wants to get that third fight with Conor McGregor, wants to fight for the belt, still has, you know, massive ideas and massive goals he wants to accomplish in the UFC. Of course, becoming a champion is one of them. But if he loses to Jake Paul, that is going to hurt his negotiating power. Let's just be honest, okay? Jake Paul is famous. Jake Paul is loaded. He's rich. He's done very well in life. But he's not considered, for all the bullshit that he will tell you, he is not considered a great in boxing. And if he loses to him, well, then that's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and it's actually going to be kind of embarrassing. All right, listen, so let's give you my ultimate prediction. Listen, I think Jake Paul's going to come in. He's going to look very dangerous early. I think he's going to learn from the Tommy Fury fight because he was looking for the knockouts. He was a little sloppy. He was a little out of range. He's going to get better. It's only when you lose that you improve, okay? That's what forces you to improve. But how better can he get in just a few months? I think the confidence will be diminished. I don't think he has the power to put Nate Diaz to sleep. And the longer the fight goes, Nate Diaz starts to take control. He never gets tired. And I think Jake Paul gets defeated once again. Nate Diaz gets the job done via decision. And then probably fails his post-fight drug test because you know Nate Diaz is smoking weed 100%, and it's not allowed in the state of Texas. So anyway, there it is. Saturday night, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. Who do you think wins? Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you soon.